Why Path of Exile 2 leagues only last 2 weeks? Path of Exile 2 leagues don't slowly fade, they collapse. Around the 2-week mark, player numbers and engagement drop sharply. Not because people finish the content, not because they beat the league, but because the game systematically drains motivation instead of rewarding it. Path of Exile 2 isn't lacking content, it's lacking action RPG fundamentals. This isn't nostalgia, this isn't hate, this is about design decisions that make long-term league play unsustainable. Path of Exile 2 is more a Soulslike than an action RPG. Path of Exile 2 feels far closer to a Soulslike than a traditional isometric action RPG. We have dodge-centric combat, slow, deliberate, commitment-heavy animations, boss-focused difficulty, and constant defensive positioning. Souls-likes are about caution, patience, learning patterns, and surviving encounters. Action RPGs are about power fantasy, momentum, escalation, and becoming unstoppable over time. Path of Exile 2 consistently pulls power back instead of letting it scale forward. You never reach the moment where the game finally gets out of your way. That alone shortens league lifespan dramatically. WASD movement fundamentally changed the game. Movement in Path of Exile 2 is built around WASD controls and analog input. This immediately signals gamepad first design, console parity, slower positional combat. For PC action RPG veterans, this breaks decades of muscle memory. Instead of reacting instantly, you're constantly repositioning. Instead of flowing through content, you're managing space. And the result, you're fighting movement instead of enjoying the build. Enemies are faster than player. In Path of Exile 2, most enemies move faster than your character by default. This flips core action RPG logic upside down. Instead of outscaling enemies and chasing power, you are retreating, kiting, resetting fights constantly. You're never in control. This constant pressure doesn't build excitement, it builds exhaustion. And it's no wonder, considering one map can last 15 to 30 minutes. Gamepad first, PC second, and that would be the philosophy. Everything about Path of Exile 2 feels designed for controller play. Slower animations, larger telegraphs, limited animation cancelling, and heavy commitment attacks. That works for gamepads, but Path of Exile became legendary on PC because it rewarded speed, precision, and high mastery. Veteran PC players feel pushed aside and they leave early. Veterans are no longer the priority. Path of Exile 2 clearly prioritizes casual onboarding and accessibility. Systems are simplified, guided, and much safer. Builds feel more intended, interactions are controlled, complexity is reduced. Veteran players hit the optimization ceiling extremely fast, and once mastery is gone, there is nothing left to chase. They leave, and the market goes to shambles. Tencent acquisition shifted direction. After Tencent's full acquisition, the design philosophy shifted. Broader audience appeal, console viability, retention-based pacing, less chaos equals less risk. Path of Exile 1 thrived on broken ideas and player-driven creativity. Path of Exile 2 avoids that chaos. Safety makes balance easier, but it kills replayability. Simplified systems lead to faster burnout. Path of Exile 2 progression stabilizes way too fast. Gear reaches good enough moments very early. Builds feel mostly finished by week 2. Crafting lacks long-term chase. In Path of Exile 1, optimization could last months. In Path of Exile 2, you're basically done in 1 week. That's little for league longevity. Weak drops, bad itemization, and broken risk-reward system. This is one of the biggest problems. Loot in Path of Exile 2 feels weak, flat, rarely exciting. rarely exciting being the biggest problem. Even when fights are insanely challenging, rewards are almost always lacking. You survive brutal boss fights, long encounters, 30 minutes maps, extreme mechanical pressure, or god forbid Ultimatum and Sanctuary, and what you get at the end is disappointment. That breaks the fundamental action RPG contract. The risk must be worth the reward. Dopamine has to come from loot drops. It is just not there in Path of Exile 2. Path of Exile 2 borrows Souls-like difficulty, but it forgets Souls-like rewards. In Souls games, a risk was extreme, but the reward was always meaningful, always changing how you play the game and your entire build. In Path of Exile 2, risk is high, reward is low, and it's a disappointment after disappointment. Every spell and skill feels slow and restrictive. Almost every skill in Path of Exile 2 takes forever to charge, lasts very little, requires precise positioning, and locks you into never-ending animations. You don't unleash power, you ask permission to act. You gotta wait for everything in this game. Non-stop charges, non-stop combos. Nothing snowballs, nothing flows, and everything resets constantly. This is fine for a Souls-like, but this is not a Souls-like. This is isometric action RPG. It has to be fast. Everything requires combos, planning, and setup. Every interaction requires combo execution, planning, perfect positioning, and constant timing checks. Everything is on a cooldown here. That works in character action games, you know, third person or first person. But action RPGs are about planning your build once, then letting it work for you. Path of Exile 2 demands perfect play every second, forever, until you get exhausted. That level of mental load is unsustainable for leagues, especially if they plan for these leagues to last more than 2 weeks. Tanks feel like rolling turtles. Tank builds are completely broken in fantasy. Instead of being brick walls, tanks are slow, always repositioning, forced to dodge, avoiding combat, rolling. They don't stand and fight in action RPGs. Tanks should say, hit me. In Path of Exile 2, tanks say, please don't touch me, let me roll 15 times, and then I'll try to get some seismic slam. The game teaches you to play like a coward. Path of Exile 2 rewards retreat, caution, delay, constant repositioning. Action RPGs reward confidence, aggression, and power expression. Path of Exile 2 doesn't want you to dominate, it wants you to survive. Survival is not a power fantasy, survival is not action RPG, survival is a Souls-like. Massive campaign maps with no skip option. Campaign maps are just huge. Long empty stretches, excessive walking, a lot of backtracking. And you cannot skip the campaign. Every reroll, every league, every character, you gotta play it all over again. That alone kills rerolling, and rerolling keeps leagues alive. New Atlas is a chore. The new Atlas system requires more movement, more setup, more management. Instead of running maps, now you manage frictions of those maps. The old system enabled flow, the new one wastes your time. The Atlas skill tree is dumbed down. The Atlas tree used to be a long-term project. Now it's shallow, obvious, quickly solved. Once set, there's nothing left to optimize. There's just not enough to optimize. 20 to 30 minutes maps just kill the momentum. Maps frequently take 20 to 30 minutes to finish. Failure feels punishing, experimentation feels risky, lack of portals feels lame, grinding feels exhausting. Action RPGs live on momentum. Path of Exile 2 destroys it. I could have played 50 maps in 1 hour in Path of Exile 1, while I can only play 2 to 4 maps in Path of Exile 2. That's literally not an action RPG anymore. It just swallows your time. For those that don't understand, it's not the same amount of loot on 2 to 4 maps in Path of Exile 2 and on 50 maps in Path of Exile 1. Completing 50 maps gives you a lot more opportunities to actually get that great loot. Path of Exile 2 doesn't like you to do that. Path of Exile 2 doesn't reward you enough. Boss invulnerability phases just kill power fantasy. Bosses constantly enter invulnerability phases. You can outgear them, outplay them, execute perfectly, but you still gonna wait. In the middle of the fight, the game just decides to say stop playing and start rolling. This doesn't test the skill, it just wastes time. It completely kills action RPG satisfaction. It is fine if 1 or 2 out of 30 bosses have invulnerability phase. It is not fine if every second boss has an invulnerability phase. There is no true Pinnacle boss. Path of Exile 2 lacks aspirational encounters, long-term endgame goals, and a true power check bosses. There is nothing that says I need to get stronger for this. You can easily get strong enough in a week and finish all the content in a game, and that's why the leagues last only 2 weeks. There is nothing to do, there is no reason for you to power up. And without Pinnacle bosses and without extra challenges, leagues just have no direction. They end up early. Shallow endgame. Once you reach endgame, there is no layered progression, no escalating systems, and no meaningful long-term chase. You hit a wall early, and you're gonna stay there. Reduced build variety. Build diversity is worse than in Path of Exile 1. Fewer extreme builds, less creativity, more curated paths. Path of Exile 1 thrived because players broke it. Path of Exile 2 avoids being broken, and replayability dies with it. Every class has like 2 to 3 valid meta builds, and then everything just feels lame in comparison. The economy dies by week 2, maybe the biggest problem in a game. Weak loot plus slow progression equals dead economy. By the week 2, prices spike, casual players are locked out, and veterans quit. There is no healthy mid-league phase. This is a recipe for a disaster. Veterans lead the market and set the prices. If you lose veterans, then there is no one to buy from. Casuals did not keep this game alive. It's the veteran players. Early access fatigue is real. Path of Exile 2 still feels unfinished, maybe like 20% of the total game so far. Every league feels like another test phase. Players don't emotionally invest because nothing feels final and everything is subject to change. Leadership and vision problem. Jonathan Rogers is still there, and to be clear, he's a good guy. But Path of Exile lacks its main bad guy. It lacks someone who truly understood action RPG's fundamentals and wasn't afraid to say no. And that person was Chris Wilson. Probably the biggest problem for GGG right now is the lack of Chris Wilson in a company. Chris was the one who protected power fantasy, the flow, the pace, and the long-term replayability. Without the hard no, design drift took over. The final verdict and why Path of Exile 2 leagues only last 2 weeks. Path of Exile 2 leagues do not fail because the game is bad, they fail because game lacks content. It's more a Soulslike than an action RPG. WASD and Gamepad first design slows everything down. Enemies outpace the player. Skills are slow, short-lived, and over-designed. Animations last forever. Everything requires combos and micromanagement. Tanks are not tanks but rolling turtles. Power fantasy is replaced with survival. Loot is weak and it's unrewarding. Risk is not worth the reward. Campaign cannot be skipped. Maps just take too long. Atlas systems are worse than in Path of Exile 1. Boss invulnerability kills momentum. There are no Pinnacle bosses. Endgame is shallow. There is not enough endgame content. Build variety is very restricted. Economy collapses early because we lack veteran players that finish way too fast. Leadership lacks a true action RPG hardliner. Action RPGs are about power. Path of Exile 2 teaches you to play like a coward. Until that changes, those 2 weeks will remain the natural end of its leagues. In other words, Path of Exile 2 needs to grow some balls and stop being so slow.